There are differing opinions on the multi-million-dollar project. Jacksport is moving forward with expansion, but trimming the map for dredging.
Where we could reduce the cost of the project significantly, but still bring in all of the benefits in terms of jobs, opportunity, and dollars for this community.
So what's happening now, not only is the river getting shortchanged, so are the taxpayers.
You'll hear perspective from the St. Johns River Keeper and why she's concerned, and you'll hear from the spokesperson of Jacksport on why critics don't see the big picture. Plus, the ups and downs of governing captured in this event in Jacksonville Beach. Protesters, a proud speech by the state's chief executive, and for you this morning, reaction from a lawmaker forced to watch some of his legislation vetoed by the governor.
Do you take that a little personal? I mean, while we're all human, and I've always had a good relationship with the governor and appreciate his accomplishments. I mean, that can sting a little bit.
Plus, our political analyst on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks for being with us this morning. The Jacksonville Port Authority and airports move more than $160 billion in trade as products come in and go out to global markets every year. Well, Jacksport wants to increase that number and wants a deeper port to allow larger cargo container ships access. So we're looking at some of the pros and cons this morning, and beginning with Lisa Reineman, the St. Johns River Keeper. Lisa, your role as River Keeper is independent advocate for the river, but also defender. So explain to me what I guess you're kind of defending when it comes to this plan to deepen the port.
Sure. You know, we have been working with the Army Corps and Jacksport for more than 5 years, trying to get a balanced approach to deepening the St. Johns River. When you deepen the river from 40 to 47 feet for 11 miles, there's significant changes that take place. We've been deepening and straightening our river for years, and so we've seen those cumulative impacts over the past, and what happens, you start seeing more saltwater intrusion that gets into our very critical grasses, submerged grasses and wetlands. As they die off due to that saltwater intrusion, you start having more pollution issues because they're the biofilters of our river, as well as it has impacts to our fisheries and our wildlife. Not to mention, not only the main channel of the St. Johns will be damaged, so will the tributaries. And unfortunately, the Army Corps has not done their due diligence to understand what that impact will be, so there's virtually no mitigation to offset that impact, which is required by federal law.
So let's explain for some folks who haven't followed this closely over the last 5 years. Army Corps of Engineers does study this, yes, and does come back with a, hey, we think this is a good idea, or it needs to be adjusted, or whatever. And at this point, what the Army Corps of Engineers has said is, yes, we're in favor of, this will work, go ahead, Jacksport in this case, and move on with this dredging project. Why do you feel like they haven't done their due diligence, is what you just said?
Well, they've done incomplete studies. For example, they have not adequately looked at the tributaries. The river does not act in isolation without the tributaries. It's all connected. And so they're going to study that after the fact. Well, you can't undo the damage after the fact. They're basically looking at monitoring the river afterwards. Data is good, but unfortunately, what happens if they miss the mark and if they're wrong, they're saying, well, we'll study it some more, and then if we believe we truly did more damage, we'll go back to Congress for more money. It's very difficult to get additional funding for these types of projects, but most importantly, you cannot undo the damage once it's done. So they've not done adequate study on the main channel of the river or the tributaries, and that impacts all of Duval County as well as St. Johns and Clay counties.
River Keeper as an organization is independent. Is
Yes.
there a different organization that should do a study? Is there somebody who would settle this, if not the Army Corps of Engineers doing the analysis?
Well, I think the Army Corps admits their fault by saying we're going to do more modeling after the fact. That modeling should be done proactively. The mitigation, the projects to fortify the river to handle the damage should be done proactively. That's required by law. That's why we do have a federal lawsuit. But most importantly, it's a disservice to this community because our river is an economic driver in itself. Our commercial recreational fisheries depend on a healthy river, property values. And so we're going to see more erosion, we're going to see more dirt and sedimentation into our river, and we're going to see that impact to pollution, more pollution incidents because of the saltwater intrusion. We're already seeing submerged cypress trees dying in Goodby's and Julington and Ortega, and we don't know what other impacts on those tributaries in Trout River. It's going to impact homeowners. And the Army Corps, it's their job to do this work. They had important water quality criteria and protections waived at the state level, saying they're the federal government, they don't have to comply. And I'm sorry, this is our river. This is, this drives our community. And so we feel it's a disservice, not only environmentally speaking, but also from an economic perspective.
Right. I appreciate it. Lisa Reineman, St. Johns River Keeper, and that's one side of the story. We're going to hear the other side here in a moment. Thank you very much for your perspective. How does the port answer some criticism about the project? And what's behind this a new effort to kind of shorten the distance that Jacksport wants to deepen. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville. Stay with us.
When we say consultations are free, we mean it. It doesn't cost a thing, regardless of whether you hire us or not. We will take all the time that you need and make sure that you make the right decisions going forward.
Harrow and Harrow. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
Get back to being yourself. Back to smiling and laughing again. Back to eating foods you love. Back to living confidently. With same-day dentures backed by our satisfaction guarantee. And for new patients, a free consult and x-ray. For affordable dentures, extractions, and implants, call 1-800-DENTURE or go to affordabledentures.com. You deserve a healthy, beautiful, and confident smile.
With a top prize of $10 million, the new $10 million world-class cash scratch-off from the Florida Lottery is your ticket to take on the world.
If you get knocked down, stand up again. Rip it up again. Give me one chance, I'm gonna make it. Give me my chance, this is my chance, I'm gonna take it.
The new $10 million world-class cash scratch-off from the Florida Lottery. One of our life-changing scratch-offs offering billions in cash prizes.
Low on cash and credit? Check out JD Buyrider's Buy Right plan. You could get a great car that's inspected, computer tested, serviced, and road ready, and it's backed by one of the best warranties around. Buy your ride right at
JD Buyrider.
Kids as young as 6 being committed, ripped out of school and thrown into mental hospitals, held against their own will for days, and parents have no say.
This year was the first time that I've seen it. It's alarming. It is alarming.
The one thing schools want every parent to know, and why they don't need your permission to lock your child up. The Baker Act, Tuesday, starting at 5:30 on News 4 Jax. Worth watching every day. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Thanks for staying with us. Nancy Room, former news anchor here at the station, now and for a long time a spokesperson for the Jacksonville Port Authority. Let's start with, I guess, the new thing. I heard that there's a new plan, shorten it from, was it 13 miles to 11 miles that'll be dredged. And why is that what Jacksport wants to do now?
Yeah, so we've been talking about it for a number of years. And, you know, we did make a commitment to look at this project and to figure out how we might reduce the cost. It is a very costly civil works project. And, you know, based on some of the information that we have now, it just makes good sense to prioritize our Asian container business, that's the business that uses the larger ships that need the deeper water, in one spot. We have enough room there with technology and densification to assist all of our Asian container customers with growing. So reduce the cost of the project by approximately $200 million while still bring all of the benefits to the community and the region. And we've figured out a way, with the assistance of our tenants and their investment, by the way, of cold hard cash, to do that in a timely fashion and allow this project to get underway.
I think you and I talking before our segment here, some of those businesses have to come alongside and say, yeah, we're willing to make the move or change what the plan is.
Yeah.
Let me ask for the Port Authority kind of response to you. You've heard some of the concerns from the Riverkeeper just in her segment a moment ago, but previously, does this growth, does this expansion come at the expense of the health of St. Johns River?
So I think it's really important to understand that we've been talking with the Riverkeeper, as she mentioned, for many, many years about this project. And it's not just the Corps of Engineers that went in and studied the environmental soundness of their plan. It was modeled using the best models in the world. It was peer-reviewed by independent scientists, dozens and dozens of organizations and independent scientists. And it was verified that it is an environmentally sound plan. The Jacksonville Port Authority has gone above and beyond. We have added funds to the program and the project to monitor the health of the river for anything unexpected. And at any moment when there is something that needs attention, it will get attention. Unlike the critics who say it hasn't been studied, most of the time, most of the money that went into the study of this project was the environmental soundness of it, and the project has been deemed worthy both environmentally and economically, which, by the way, I would love to get to that subject because it is not based on a pipe dream. We are a destination for Asian containers now and will be in the future.
And Nancy, I think what you're getting at is there's been some criticism. Hey, Jacksport says we're going to, this infusion of jobs and everything, and some people are saying that's not really going to happen. You feel confident that those changes will happen with the dredging and expansion?
You don't have to believe us. You just have to look at our numbers over the last 10 years. Over the last 5 years, we've had double-digit growth in this container business. That is specifically the Asian containers coming aboard the larger ships. We now have our Asian container customers saying, Jacksonville, we want to put our money where our mouths are. We want to invest further in your community so we can bring all of the cargo here that we know will come here.
Is it like signed, sealed, delivered? Hey, we're just waiting for you to do this and we're ready to go, or is it a verbal thing at this point?
Right now we're negotiating with them on all of the ins and outs of making this move a reality. It is, these are successful conversations, and they have said we are there with our cash. Not only that, when our marketing executives travel the world, people want to know about Jacksonville. They say we want to be there. Their next question is, how soon are you starting the deepening project?
As we've reported, it's a competition. There are other ports along the eastern seaboard that want to do this as well. We're out of time, but Nancy, I appreciate it. You know, it goes quick, doesn't it?
It does.
Appreciate it. Obviously something that we'll keep following.
Okay. Thanks, Kent.
As state politics front and center as the governor gets late-term support from some local lawmakers. Mr. Scott also got an earful from educators about the Schools of Hope bill. All that next on This Week in Jacksonville.
If you've been injured in a slip and fall accident, I want to give you an important piece of advice. If you're able, make sure to take pictures of the dangerous condition which caused your injury. Once a repair is made or a substance is cleaned up, that evidence is lost forever. With technology today, evidence can be preserved immediately. If you have questions, give us a call. At Morgan & Morgan, we represent consumers. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Make tomorrow awesome with Xfinity TV from Comcast. Right now, you can get Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months with Xfinity On Demand included. Call 1-800-566-8080 today. Xfinity On Demand delivers thousands of hit shows, top movies, and more at no additional cost. So you can stream the latest episodes of TV's hottest shows anytime, anywhere, on even more screens. Get started with Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months with Xfinity On Demand included. Plus, ask how you can add premium channels like Showtime or Stars and enjoy award-winning TV shows and movies at home and on the go. It's all backed by our 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's risk-free. Enjoy top shows and movies at a great low price. Call 1-800-566-8080. That's 1-800-566-8080. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
Peace of mind. It's one of the most important things we can have, and sometimes it's the most elusive, especially if you're dealing with legal issues. We're the law office of Anajar and Levine, and we offer peace of mind with responsive legal help. If you've been in a car accident, let our team of experienced attorneys help you with all your legal rights, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At Anajar and Levine, we don't just practice the law, we practice what we love. Call 1-800-747-FREE for a consultation.
Florida Governor Rick Scott spent part of the week on tour celebrating wins from the state's special session. His victory lap in Jacksonville Beach ran into a vocal crowd from across the state, all protesting House Bill 7069. And in Duval County, for that appearance by the governor, Clay County lawmaker Travis Cummings stopped in. I asked State Rep Cummings if it was hard to stand in support of the governor when Rick Scott campaigned across the state in the spring, criticizing people like Representative Cummings for taking the stand they did in the House.
Kent, it's interesting how politics work, and I've been in local government for 10 years now in the legislature, finishing my 5th year, but it never ceases to amaze me that you just got to recognize that compromise is going to happen. You've got to be willing to work with others and understand their priorities and their passions. And I think between the Florida House and our leader, Speaker Richard Corcoran, as well as Governor Rick Scott, Senate President Joe Negron, everyone's going to have some different priorities that clearly can conflict because there's only so many dollars in our state budget. The governor clearly did go across the state, and a few months ago, particularly with the Florida House's position on Visit Florida for tourism efforts and also Enterprise Florida for job creation. And definitely was pretty vocal and went in a lot of our districts and did go into District 18 and, would mention who the legislators were that had various positions. And, do you take that a little personal? I mean, while we're all human, and I've always had a good relationship with the governor and appreciate his accomplishments. I mean, that can sting a little bit. But you also recognize that, hey, one thing about this governor you can say that he's about jobs, he's about tourism, and he stands by that, and that's really his key focus. And so I think you've got to have thick skin, I try to always do that. And so while, yes, it's interesting to see how things can occur, the governor compromised as well, and both he and Speaker Corcoran and Senate President Negron are tough negotiators, and but I think everybody came together to get a win for Florida in my eyes.
A lot of educators came together before the session was over, during session, after session, even this week when Governor Scott stopped at Angie's Subs there in Jax Beach. Lots of teachers or parents or what have you, all coming together to say, we don't like the Schools of Hope bill. We don't like House Bill 7069. Please veto it. Why, if you do, why do you support that? How is that good for the Florida students here or for the school systems?
No, that House Bill 7069 obviously is on the governor's desk and waiting for him to weigh in and either support it or to veto the bill. I voted favorably on the bill and stand by it, just like I voted favorably on the additional $100 per student that we went back to special session to fund. Hey, I'm educated K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade in Clay County. My wife was as well, and really education's the foundation or fabric of really should be of our communities and really support public education. I will tell you though that I'm a believer of school choice and parents having a choice for their students to go to schools of particular curriculums or schools where they may be at a school that's not doing very well or is failing, and why should they not have the ability to go to one where their child can prosper? And I think 7069 is got some parts that people are focused on in a very negative way, but I will tell you that if people really dig down on a very robust, comprehensive piece of legislation, Kent, they'll find that there's a lot of great things in there, whether it's, for public education. And there's a lot of key pieces of it that's, to me, transformational for education. We're spending more dollars on public education than we ever have. And it's very important to the Florida House. And to me, the legislature, we're hopeful the governor will sign it.
I saw that there were some items, not just in Clay County, but around the state, that when the budget went to the governor, he started Xing some things out, vetoing some things. Did you lose some things for Clay County that you initially thought were going to be in the budget?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I saw the governor yesterday, the speaker had asked me he couldn't make it up to Jacksonville. I've been all across state with him and say a few words. And I mentioned to, in the media at the press conference that the governor funded this about a $200 million increase to public education. We were there last week. Obviously, some environmental dollars for the dike and the issue down in the Lake Okeechobee area, as well as some tourism and economic, and programs that were more based on infrastructure with a lot of accountability measures. But I say that to say they were paid for by roughly about $400 million in vetoes from the governor. And this has been a governor that I think has had record vetoes in his time there in terms of various spending that he thought wasn't a state responsibility or might be more local or just may be not the responsibility of the state of Florida to fund. Yes, I had a project or two that that was vetoed. That's to be expected usually. I think overall we've done well with Senator Bradley's great help too in Clay County and working with our whole Northeast Florida delegation. I thought it was a good year for Northeast Florida. I think I was pleasantly surprised that you know, we had as limited amount of vetoes as we did, quite frankly, just with the environment that we had this past session. But we're always, you can't get married to too many projects. It's our job to try to get it in the budget and get it supported by the House and Senate. We did that, and the governor ultimately has the final authority on whether to support it or veto it.
There's more to my interview with State Representative Cummings. You can find that online at news4jax.com. Okay, we may have saved the best for last. JU's Rick Mullaney is weighing in on what's happening around the nation and really kind of bizarre times for us in America. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Travel in luxury. See the extremely efficient and gorgeous Airstream Interstate Motorhome, built on the quality Mercedes chassis and the Mercedes turbo diesel engine. Only at Dick Gore's RV World. Airport exit in Jacksonville.
Every 30 seconds, a RE/MAX agent helps someone buy or sell a home. That means in the time it takes, warm soup to cool, or in the time it takes two teenagers to fall in love, or in the time it takes for a conversation to get awkward. A RE/MAX agent just helps someone buy or sell a home. That's the sign of a RE/MAX agent.
This is a ClassAction.com consumer alert. Homes built before 1975 may have pipe erosion that can cause major water damage to your home. If you have water damage, warped floors, slow drains, or even a water-stained wall, you may have leaking pipes below your foundation, right under your feet. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Call or visit pipelawsuit.com now to learn more.
Subaru of Jacksonville kicks off the summer with the Model Year-End Sales Event. Take advantage of 0% financing on new 2017 Subarus starting at only $18,400. Drive out in a new Forester for just $175 a month. Or get a new Outback starting at just $25,006. Plus complimentary maintenance on all new Subarus. All of this and more during the Model Year-End Sales Event. Come experience the Subaru of Jacksonville difference. Dealer Rater's Dealer of the Year 3 years in a row.
Drive a Subaru. You'll buy a Subaru.
The day's top stories right in your inbox. News4jax.com morning home delivery. Sign up today. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
And News4Jax political analyst Rick Mullaney joins us. Rick founded and is now director of the Public Policy Institute at Jacksonville University. Rick, just in the last few days, we've seen a lot in Washington, D.C. So a week ago, James Comey, the former FBI director, testifies in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And then this week, we saw the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. What do you make of all this? These are really unusual times, it seems like.
Well, let me give you two takeaways. One is that the partisan divide is as big as ever. I mean, it's stunning. If you listen to a Republican and a Democrat coming out of those hearings, they will give you diametrically opposed views as to what they just heard. With James Comey, on one side, it was Donald Trump was devastated. On the other side, Donald Trump was vindicated. For Jeff Sessions, it was his integrity was restored. He refuted the allegations about collusion and why he recused himself. On the other side, it was stonewalling and he needs to resign. The partisan divide is really, really serious. And as a result, I think, by the way, you now have three investigations. One is to Russia interference in the election. A second is alleged collusion between the Trump administration and Russia. And the third is now obstruction. But on the second point, Kent, I think it highlights how important November of 2018 is going to be, because those elections will be critical for the future of this investigation as to whether the House stays Republican or whether it goes Democratic.
Well, a couple weeks ago you were here and we talked about the fact that when there's a special investigator or special counsel, that they never come back and say, oh, and nothing happened. Thanks for spending all that time and money, that there will be something. But we're also talking about this obstruction. The president can't be charged with a crime here, right?
No, a sitting president, and this is important to know for the future of this investigation, a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime. Now, there's some legal scholars who disagree with that, but that is the prevailing view. I agree with that view. They cannot be charged with a crime. When they leave office, they can be. And you saw Gerald Ford pardon Richard Nixon, for example, after he left office. What does happen, however, is at the conclusion of this investigation, Robert Mueller will turn his report and his findings over to the Justice Department. That will be Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. General. And then a decision was made as to whether to go forward. And that going forward, of course, could involve impeachment. That's why I say November of 2018 is so important. Absent some additional evidence on collusion, I doubt you're going to see much movement among congressional Republicans on this. However, if the Democrats take over the House in 2018, I think come 2019 there will be lots of talk about potential impeachment.
I want to show you some video of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Earlier this week, he met with two of the top leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee. That specific committee is who held the hearings where Comey spoke and Sessions spoke. Mueller met with Committee Chairman Richard Burr and then the top Democrat on the panel with Mark Warner. He did that Wednesday afternoon. Those senators, they've been pressing to meet with Mueller since his appointment. And one of the things we heard this last week was that, well, maybe the president would fire Mueller. Explain that for me, Rick, because as I understand it, the president can't get rid of him.
He really can't. Let's explain the legal structure. First of all, the special counsel reports now to the Deputy General Counsel, Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein is the one who has the authority to fire the special counsel. In addition, although the special counsel has all the authority of a U.S. attorney, very substantial authority, for significant actions, he must get approval from Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy General Counsel. When he's concluding his investigation, he will go to Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein testified this week that absent cause, which is the standard for removing Rob Mueller, that won't happen. He was unaware of such cause, and Rod Rosenstein made very clear he had no intention of firing the special counsel.
Yeah, and from what you've heard in the hearing so far, how do you stand on the accusations of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, or anything that's going on with there? It seems like we still just don't have enough information, right?
I think, as I said last week on this program and in others, I think we're early in the ballgame. We have to wait and see. But I do think if you look just at the testimony of Comey and Sessions, there wasn't a whole lot on collusion. There was a greater focus on the potential obstruction of justice. We'll have to wait and see on that. But the emotions are running high, the investigation is going forward, and the expansion by the special counsel is what special counsels tend to do.
Yeah, so final point, and before we run out of time, James Comey had testified about this one-on-one visit with the president, where he said the president didn't order him drop the General Flynn investigation, but he did say, I hope it goes away. Common sense test? If my superior, if my boss tells me, I hope that goes away, don't I take it as a directive? Get rid of that thing?
Clearly, many people do. I do think we have to wait to hear the president's version of that. And by the way,
will we?
I think you will. According to a press conference he had last week, he claimed he had a different version, and I think eventually he'll be interviewed by the special counsel. But instead of this being a he said, I actually think if there are tapes, the special counsel will get that. If Donald Trump made statements to other people, such as Admiral Rogers or Director Coates, we will get that too. So the investigation isn't complete yet. It may not just be a purely he said, but at this time, I don't think, based on the evidence, there's sufficient allegation or sufficient evidence to support a crime.
And I pointed out that you're a political analyst, but your background goes deep in the law. So I appreciate hearing it. You've got much more expertise than I do on what those things mean. Rick Mullaney, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. All right, so This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. Former Congressman Andrew Crenshaw plans to join us next week. We're also diving into findings from Tax Watch Florida. Their CEO will be with us. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air and online at newsforjax.com.
More people in Northeast Florida and South Georgia get their news from News4Jax than anywhere else.